Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies that most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode, we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back and consigned to oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette. Hello, bonjour, salut, et bienvenue à Movie Oubliette, the intercontinental artistic podcast on forgotten fantastic films with me, Conrad, making sure my bookshelves look impressive for Zoom calls in Cambridge, UK.
And me, Dan, regretfully going back into lockdown in Melbourne, Australia.
Oh. We focus on science fiction, fantasy, and horror movies because we love little girls negotiating mazes with string tied around their waists, people being forced to watch their own death, and poisonous robot fleas.
Wow, that intro, Conrad. So sophisticated. I feel like I should be sipping on a glass of wine.
Ah, yes. Wouldn't that be nice? So how are you doing? You're back in lockdown again.
Yes. Back in lockdown. We're doing terribly down here in Melbourne, but hopefully we'll get it under control.
Oh, we're slowly sort of emerging, but we have local outbreaks. Like we have one city called Leicester that was put in lockdown. It may be out of it by the time this episode goes out.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's a strange time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, gotta roll with the punches, I guess.
I guess it gives us more time to be creative.
Yes.
I've been trying. I mean, I finally finished a video essay for our YouTube channel, which is something I haven't done for a while.
Yeah. For that movie that you love so much.
I know, yes. So it's all about the fact that I watched 1917, the whole of the beginning of the year while cinemas were open and then they closed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's called I Watched 1917 9 Times, and this is what I learned. It's sort of an analysis of the film and also talking about what it's like to watch a movie that many times and also talking about how we can't go to the movies anymore.
Right.
And how that makes us feel.
Right. So everyone, please check out our YouTube channel now and watch it.
Yes.
So, Conrad, have our listeners been in contact with us this week?
They have, yes. Lots of love for Explorers. Eddie's video said on Instagram, I'm one of the 17 people who saw it. Haha. And damn proud. Happy birthday, Explorers.
Yeah.
So that was exciting. Yes, he was reacting to Robert Picardo's wonderful opening joke when we were interviewing him, saying that we were among the 17 people who'd seen Explorers when it first came out. Although I'm sure it was a few more than that. That's a poor movie. It's so sad.
Still hilarious, though.
Yes. I love that guy. In fact, we had lots of love for Robert Picardo being on the show. Nick Hardy said, wow, good work, guys. Robert Picardo is a legend. Love the fact that Joe Dante regularly used the same actors in his films. Makes watching them a little more fun than they already are. Which is true, actually.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Dick Miller just pops up, even in The Hole, the movie that we did, which was a relatively recent one.
Yeah.
And he's just there delivering a pizza. Which I remember you weren't very impressed with as a cameo.
Oh, it was so bizarre, though. I mean, if I hadn't known it was a cameo, I mean, I didn't know it was a cameo when I watched it, so...
Who's this old guy?
Yeah, exactly. Why is there this 80-year-old guy delivering pizza? Surely he would have had sort of high aspirations for his career.
Well... Yeah, quite. But meanwhile, all of us Dante fans are like, hey, there's Dick. And also some love for Jerry Goldsmith from Oblivion's Muse. Still one of my favourite soundtracks by Jerry Goldsmith and still love this movie. So that was a nice comment.
You're not alone, Conrad, about the
I'm
score.
not alone. Yeah. And of course, we got the verdict from Serge on Explorers, which I was very nervous about.
Oh,
Serge
yes.
of Cold Crash Pictures.
Hey, Serge.
Hey, Serge. And he said, I always liked the Shaggy Dog ending of Explorers, where the kids finally meet the aliens and they're not what he expected. Prometheus wishes. It's a shame Dante couldn't finish the film the way he wanted, because the ending feels discordant, but I really love the ideas it plays with. And this is one of my favourite childhood movies, so yay!
Wow, okay.
Which I find impressive because Serge is a few years younger than me.
Yeah.
Just a few. He wasn't an 80s kid, let's put it that way, but
Okay.
he still remembers it from his childhood, so
Oh,
that's
wow.
great.
I find it funny every country in the world had a different set of movies that used to always be played on television.
Yeah.
And yeah, Explorers did not make it down to New Zealand at all.
No. Oh, that's amazing. It was quite a hit on cable, I think, in America.
Ah, right.
I don't know when I first saw it. I really cannot remember, but I do remember having the VHS, and I still have the VHS. Yeah. I tweeted out an image of the cover on Sunday.
Yes.
Yes, that's all the mailbag we've had recently, but we do love hearing from you, so please do get in touch.
Yes, please do.
So, onward, Dan. We need to get a film for us to talk about today, especially seeing as we have a guest coming. Better hop on over to that oubliette and find something for us.
Righto, here I go. I'm suddenly at the docks.
Weird. Why?
I don't know. And what's that sound? Oh no, I'm getting compelled to walk this way.
You seem to be in a trance or something.
Oh, and now I'm dueling.
Oh, here's the film, I guess.
Watch out for that ship.
Getting out of here.
Oh, je l'ai migraine.
Right, here I am, returned.
Safe and sound.
From a very strange green colour paleted environment.
Yeah. So what have you got for us?
Today I have the 1995 French movie The City of Lost Children, directed by Marc, Caro and Jean-Pierre Jeunet of Amélie fame.
Oh, yes. I dimly remember watching this a very long time ago, but I cannot remember what happens in it.
Well, The City of Lost Children follows one, played by none other than Ron Perlman, who is the circus strongman after his little brother gets abducted by a gang of sight and sound challenged cyclopses. One teams up with the young thief Miet. They come up against conniving conjoined twins, enslaving fleas, incompetent clones, a 3-foot-tall woman, and an old man intent on having just one good dream. It's dark, it's weird, it's steampunk, it's the City of Lost Children.
Wow. I cannot wait to try and figure this one out.
Well, we will have a guest to help us decipher this film.
I can't wait. Our special guest today is an actor, producer, and popcorn enthusiast who was plucked from a quiet life in her native Sweden and thrust into the Hollywood limelight after co-creating and starring in a series of fiercely original and disturbing horror shorts. She's gone on to appear in the feature-length recreation of her short Lights Out, as well as starring in Annabelle Creation and my new favourite Christmas movie, Shazam. I'm very excited to welcome Lotta Losten.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
How have you been coping in lockdown?
Well, I think it's both been like business as usual because David and I were kind of in between things right now anyway, so we wouldn't have been going to an office or working on a project right now anyways. But then we probably would have hung out with people a little bit more. So it has now it is starting to feel a bit much it's stretching out into this new normal that is not what you want the normal to be like.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting times.
Yeah.
I know that we're past the halfway point. We've spent more of the year in lockdown than out of it at this point.
Yeah.
But still, plenty of time to sit and catch up on great movies that you might have missed.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Also, lockdown has prompted you to make more shorts, Lotta.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see the horror shorts back on YouTube.
Yeah, that has actually been the weirdly positive side of Corona.
Sure.
Because David and I haven't had time to make. I've had way more time than David has had. So I've been like climbing on the walls, being like, oh, I want to make shorts again. So now when we finally had time together again, yeah, it's been great. And it's actually been really fun. And
Oh, wow.
it feels like we realized that we've actually learned stuff since coming here, which is a nice realization.
It's great.
Yeah. I really loved the latest one, Not Alone in Here, because in that one you actually had a narratorial voice.
Yeah.
Which I don't think we've had before.
No, it's just been like, oh shit, or like short phrases, oh no, things like that. We didn't want to have any spoken lines before because it was nice that it could be spread all over the world without anybody having to know a language. But we have been talking about giving me more to do in the shorts because the previous ones are quite technical and they don't really show what I can do acting wise. And we've been wanting to put things out where I feel like, oh, this is actually giving me more to do so people can see that, oh, she actually can act. So that's been really nice with the latest one that we could actually give me a little bit more to do.
Sure.
And it was also just fun to try a new way of filmmaking. We decided first off that we were going to do a voiceover. So that came first, and it was fun to just play around with that idea. What could we do now that we couldn't do in our previous shorts?
Sure.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool because it's darkly humorous in a few places, but it's also psychologically much more disturbing.
Yes.
So I loved it.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yes, I did go on a binge on all the shorts all at once, and I was just like clutching my pillow on every one of them.
And see all the places we've lived.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it must be kind of a weird photo album for you to look back on.
Yeah. It's funny, we went back to Sweden last year to move all our stuff because we still had our apartment in Gothenburg where we shot Lights Out and most of the shorts. And we were paying rent for it, but it was mostly just very expensive storage by that point. So we gave it up and put everything in a real storage. But it was wild because we haven't been there in so long. And the neighbors were coming out of their apartments and were like, you've made it scary to go to the basement to do laundry. And you've made it scary to go to the attic. And we've never thought about that. We had never taken that in consideration. Like, we have a younger couple living right opposite of our apartment, and they both came out and had like scary stories to tell about how the lights kept flickering on and off, and it's like, it's just like in your shorts. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I guess so that these like iconic horror locations now.
Yeah, I hope the neighbors tell the new people what their apartment has been through.
Probably bumps up the value for sure.
Or not.
Oh, yes.
Who knows? So today we're here to talk about a unique film, The City of Lost Children, the 1995 movie directed by Marc, Caro and Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And you chose this film for us, Lotta.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could kick us off by talking about your relationship with the film when you first saw it and why you were keen to revisit it again.
I actually don't really remember when I first saw it, but I think it was sometime in the late 90s. But then I rewatched it with David 2012 or something like that, maybe. And I think I saw it then just because I had watched Amélie and loved it so much and realized it was the same director. And I wanted to go back, and David hadn't seen it. So I was like, oh, you have to see this movie. And he thought it was way too whimsical, but it's right up my alley. I think I accept the weirdness.
Yes.
A little more easily than he does. But I haven't seen it in such a long time. And when you asked me about a movie, I'm like, I don't even remember if it's good or bad anymore. I don't even remember what it's about. I just have like weird glimpses of things.
That's funny. I remember seeing it when it first came out. I was a student at the time, so I was trying to be more arty and watch international movies. And I remember nothing about it other than, for some reason, the image of the mechanical flea.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's 25th anniversary this year. It's 25 years ago.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's quite an experience to watch it again. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I didn't watch it. Well, I was in uni at the time, but it was a few years later. And yeah, I remember watching it because of Amélie and Delicatessen as well, which is another fantastic film.
Yes.
I also realized that me and Hannah actually own all of his movies, apart from The Prodigious Test Spivet. And this movie, I don't remember either. I remember it being a dark fantasy film, and that is it. I had no idea Ron Perlman was in this movie. I don't think I even knew who Ron Perlman was at the time, but it's super weird seeing him in a leading role speaking French.
Yeah. That was the one thing I did remember, because it's actually like the radiateur thing he says in my equally bad French has been like a joke with me and David over the years, actually. Just like when one is cold and the other one is not, like you hug and say radiateur.
Okay.
And we actually saw Ron Perlman at our neighborhood grocery store once. And then was also like, we talked about radiateur for a week after that.
Okay.
Amazing.
You didn't run up to him and say radiateur.
No. We did not. I also really remember the Santa Claus scene in the beginning. Like when it started off, I was like, oh, yes, this I remember. It's so scary. It's so scary when the one Santa Claus becomes two and then they just multiply. And it's so twisted and scary right from the start.
Yeah, and the sort of visuals they put on the film where everything looks like it's warping. Like I felt dizzy and drunk watching it.
Yeah.
It was a very strange experience.
It is.
A lot of fisheye lens close-up faces that look warped.
Yeah, the film's quite alienating in the first act, I find. You're really thrust into these situations and you don't really have a lot of context as to what's happening and what the relationships are between different people that you're seeing or who your protagonist might be. So I found it quite difficult to get into watching it a second time until you get to the second act and you're introduced to Ron Perlman's character 1 and the character Miette. I think it's translated as Crumb on my subtitles.
Yeah.
It did? Oh, mine was kept as Miette.
Yeah, mine was Crumb as well.
There you go. That's a wonderful relationship. And as soon as they're together and their relationship develops, I'm totally sold and invested in the movie. But yeah, the first part of it really is disturbing and strange.
Yeah, you're just thrown right into it and you don't understand how anything is connected. And it looks so much like a stage play in the beginning. Maybe it kept doing that, but I got used to it. But in the beginning, I thought this could actually just be on a stage. The steampunky feel to it. I was thinking about that. When did steampunk become big? Was he early with it? Like we Googled it and like it says the first time it's mentioned was like 87 or something like that. But I can't remember steampunk being big in 95.
Yeah.
I think it was later,
I
right?
feel like it was, maybe the early 2000s that it became big.
Yeah.
But I guess it didn't really become its own, genre until 2000. So I guess they weren't even aware that it was a real thing before that. I don't know.
But it's so steampunky. The whole movie's so steampunky.
Yes, it is. But it's interesting you mentioned it looking like a stage play because that's exactly what I thought as well. Because there's so many great use of space in it as well. Everything looks very crammed together as if you were watching like a stage play or an opera with a set that's in a limited space.
Yeah, with levels, like built on height.
Exactly.
With staircases and things, yeah.
When I was watching the making of on the DVD, it did say that this was apparently the first French film in 40 years to be filmed entirely on a set in the studio. You kind of understand why they did that because they had to have so much control of lighting.
Yeah.
Especially with all the clone work that they did with that character.
Yeah.
That was like the clone. I was just flabbergasted how they were able to achieve that by cloning that one actor over and over again.
Yeah, you start to forget that it's just the one actor
Yeah, Dominique Pignon.
Yeah.
because it feels like they are multitudes. How they argue about who's the original. That's
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah.
It's really beautifully choreographed.
Yeah.
And so technical as well. I mean, you've talked about how some of your shorts are really technical. That must be really tough to try to create a character and be mindful of exactly where you're standing and where the camera is. And I don't know how you do both at the same time.
I don't know. I mean, when we do the shorts, it's not really a story or a character. So then I just try to make it as natural as possible. But that's the one thing that I do struggle with here in Hollywood is like how to get into the character when everything around you is so technical and everybody's focusing on like your hair, how the light bounces off your skin, like how it looks. You're not really important until the moment you start acting. And then you're so wrapped up in all the people around you and everything. It's, to me, it's really hard, but I come from stage. I've done theater. So to me, that's part of the joy of theater is that you live through it, all of it. And then the emotions come naturally when they're supposed to. Yeah, that is very tough for me.
It's quite the menagerie of weird and wonderful characters. And I think I really like Miette, who is this Dickensian character. She's almost like the Artful Dodger. And it's quite unusual to see a female character in that kind of role. Out of her and one, who is the lumbering strongman who's trying desperately to rescue his adoptive younger brother, that's the sort of inciting incident that kicks the film off. He's definitely not the brains of the operation. He's certainly the strength and the heart.
Yeah.
And I love the moment where she notes that they're stronger together.
Oh, it's beautiful. She adds to his weight when he's the strongman ripping apart chains every day. And her hand is the thing that makes the chain break. And when he squeezes her bicep, like, oh yeah, you're strong. You're a strong one. That's so beautiful. It's so heartening. That was a beautiful moment for me.
Yeah.
Their relationship is very endearing, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of the relationship between two characters in Leon, the professional, Jean Reno and Natalie Portman, a young girl with an older man, which kind of does come across a little disturbing. Like I did feel there were parts in this film that felt, it's quite close, I guess, like when they were
when they're he's holding her and he's lowering the blanket to warm her shoulder. It's like you get that tinge of like, is this going bad places? But it's just not. It's just not supposed to, and it makes you feel a bit guilty, right? To think that, because it's like, why? What does my disturbed brain do now? This is meant to be the naive human relationship between two people who need each other. Yeah.
I think it's also a cultural difference as well. I feel like Europeans are much more affectionate towards each other. I don't know. Even I watched Call Me By Your Name recently, and there's a scene where the character who's like 17 is lying on top of his parents. And it's just like, I would have never done that when I was 17. It just seems like a very odd thing to do. But it's Europe.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, maybe I've become Americanized.
Maybe.
Since living here for 5 years. But maybe it is true. Maybe we're a bit more affectionate in some ways, but we're also Swedish people are really not.
Not so much.
Yeah, sure.
I know what you mean, Dan. It does set alarm bells. It's not quite as bad as The Time Traveler's Wife.
I have not seen that.
Have you not seen it?
I haven't seen that either.
Have you not? No, it's a beautiful book. It's a literary experience when you're just inside the mind of this time traveler who dots around in his own life and he never knows where he's going to end up. So he keeps meeting his eventual wife as a child. And so he befriends her and talks to her and, of course, eventually tells her that she's going to be his wife and that she's the one true love of his life. Now, as a literary experience, it was fine. When they turned it into a movie and all of a sudden you're seeing a grown man, and of course every time he time travels his clothes disappear, so you're just seeing this naked man showing up, grooming this 12-year-old, saying, you're going to be my wife one day. And you just watch it and think, oh no, this doesn't translate visually at all. This is really bad. But I don't think you get that with Ron Perlman and Miette.
No, they're lovely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's not really portrayed as seedy or sleazy in any way outside of their relationship, so it kind of does work. I did find his acting, I guess because he was speaking French, he doesn't speak French, he had to just memorize his lines. I found his acting quite over dramatic, almost like I was watching a silent film. Like you didn't even have to understand what he was saying. He was just being very physical with his acting.
Yeah, and it's like he uses one-word sentences because he doesn't know the language.
Yes,
And that's
yes.
the point because he was a sailor before. So I imagine that he comes from far away.
Sure.
He's just physical. That's all his character is.
Yeah.
It's not at all about the words.
Yeah.
And he needs to get his little brother.
Yeah. I love when she asks him what's it like to have a little brother and he says keeps you running. So again, even that relationship he visualizes just in a physical sense that he has to just
Yeah.
keep running to keep up with this little kid.
Yeah. That's also so lovely when he says that she's little sister because her face there when she's like hears that and it warms her so much. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
She's so great in this.
She really warms up throughout the film because I think when you first meet her, she is hard as nails. She's always on the defensive. She's ready to attack all of her peers who obviously are vying for position in her little gang of pickpockets and thieves out on the street for the octopus gathering their daily crust. And to see her defenses slowly break away as she's helping this slumbering giant rescue his adoptive little brother. It's a wonderful arc for her, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Which makes it so awful when he gets poisoned by the flea and starts to choke her. And it's so awful because you're like, you know that she can't understand why and that he just tattooed her name on his arm and she was supposed to be his little sister and now he's trying to kill her and it hurts so much to watch that, right?
It's heart-wrenching.
It's really disturbing, especially when he slaps her the first time and she falls over. The look of hurt in her eyes.
Yeah.
It's devastating.
Yeah, and I don't think you see in movies grown men slapping children like that because it's like we have that limit. Like even if it's a movie and we're supposed to portray something awful, that's just not something we show, which is like the wrong way to go. You should be able to show just how awful a person is if it's just a movie. But yeah, that's I think why it hits you so hard. You're not used to seeing that, and it's not good.
Yeah. I do like how the movie does give her sort of the hero role at the end as well. Like she kind of saves the day. She goes into the dream and saves the boy and overcomes the guy. I don't even know that character's name.
Oh, Crank.
Yeah.
Was that Crank? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that character, he is so interesting to watch.
Yeah.
His physical acting and just his face is just
Yeah.
full of idiosyncrasies and, I don't know, facial.
He's more teeth than anything else.
Yes.
And I think they make it even more clear to you because he's so close up to the camera all the time
Yes.
with a fisheye lens. So his
Yes.
face is just twisted. Scary man.
I mean, this film does really well at portraying characters that look so unique. Like every single character looks interesting in a way that's not sort of conventional. Like no one, apart from maybe Miet and not even Ron. Ron is a very interesting looking guy.
There's this, the lady that's supposed to seduce him at the bar. She's like very, very conventionally beautiful. And that's like the one scene that I feel doesn't really work for me.
Yeah, I felt that too.
I feel like why would she be upset that he doesn't want to be with her? It just feels like she's supposed to be like a sex worker, I guess. Like it's a brothel, I think. I don't know. I don't understand the motives there really.
Yeah, I found that scene did kind of drag a little bit. Yeah, it could have been cut in half, that scene, easily, but they needed it, I guess.
I think they just needed it for Miet to come in and catch them and think that he was just forgotten about her.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't think they needed that.
No, and I wanted more of a reunion for them. I mean, certainly there should be more of a scene of him realizing what he's done to her and the guilt, and instead he's just drunk in a brothel. Doesn't feel quite right for him, although I suppose he is a sailor originally, so maybe he just reverts to type.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some other characters I really liked. So the octopus conjoined twins.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they were fantastic.
So good.
The scene where they're cooking, they must have
Oh,
practiced
yeah.
that so much. Like one is grating the parmesan, where they're itching the other person's arm.
Yeah.
And she's feeding her sister the food and tasting it herself. It's so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
fun. Yeah. I love scenes like that. And I think it feels like that's the thing that feels very connected to Amélie and all his movies,
Yes.
where it's like orchestrated scenes. That are funny because of how they're moving.
Yes, he really is able to sort of make something that would normally be quite mundane seem very interesting.
Yeah.
And even like one of the scenes where one of them inhales a cigarette and then the other one exhales the smoke. It's just
Yeah.
brilliant.
Lovely. Yeah.
So good.
it's a simple throwaway gag, but it's so good.
Yeah. I love how evil they are.
Yes.
I love Irvin the brain with migraine as well. That's just the best
yeah.
joke.
The brain in the tank. Yeah.
Yeah, like his whole existence is just a brain with a migraine. And when Crank feeds him an aspirin through like a tube,
Yeah.
it's so funny.
Everyone seems to be a circus performer for some reason.
Yeah, they're like freaks, all of them. So, and the circus director Marcel, is he like the owner of all of them then, or has been?
Used to
That's
be,
like
yeah.
it feels like that's the previous story that isn't really told. It's just
Yeah.
told through some pictures.
That was what I took from the title. It's City of Lost Children. And of course, there is this underlying story that lots of children keep going missing because the evil Crank is putting them in his thought machine just so that he can experience their dreams because he doesn't dream himself. But I thought the title could have another wider meaning, which is that it is just a city populated by lost children.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a representation of a relationship, an adult relationship, anywhere in the movie.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems to be a city of delinquents and castaways. And I mean, when they do abduct the children, what happens after they put them through the dream machine? Do they throw them overboard or?
I think they die. Yeah, I think so. Because I think that's what the teddy bear represents in the beginning. The boy that they take, they throw the teddy bear over. And I think that's like a representation of the child being dead.
Wow. Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
It's pretty disturbing.
I mean, maybe it's just my dark brain that goes there, but that's what I thought. Because you never see that child again. Like that child has the biggest like top lip I've ever seen on a child. And I was like looking at the children like, is that the top lip guy? It's like, no, he's not there anymore. I think he did die in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm interested about the demographic as well because when you describe it, it just sounds like a children's film, like a fairy tale, like a fantasy world, but it is much darker.
Yeah.
I think when I first watched it at the age of 20, I don't think I really understood it. And watching it again, it made a lot more sense to me.
Certainly, watching it again, I am keenly aware how tonally inconsistent it is. I mean, one of the things I was going to mention in relation to those guys with the hearing aids, there is a scene in this movie that is deeply, deeply disturbing, where one of them gets poisoned by the flea with the poison that makes them go crazy and homicidal towards their friends. And he slowly forces a knife into the eye of one of his compatriots.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
takes the output from his seeing eye and plugs it into the input of the other one
Yeah.
so that he can watch himself being strangled to death. It's
Yeah.
really, really confronting, that sequence.
Oh, it's awful.
I put that down in my notes as well. Like, that's the cruelest thing. Like, he really wants him to watch himself die. It's brutal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, tonally all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think if I would have watched this when I was a child, I would have had nightmares forever about it, just because it is so scared. Like, even the idea that he collects kids so he can dream and he just goes through them and makes them experience awful, awful nightmares. And then he just discards them in pursuit of the one that could give him happy dreams.
Yes.
It's
yes,
very
yes.
sad and very awful.
Yeah.
But then the little brother who's not affected by it, he's just hungry.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
The amount of sausages that he just brings out of his shirt sleeves is...
And they're not small either.
No.
My favorite is when he takes a bite out of a candle.
Yeah.
And his reaction to it is wonderful.
Yeah.
But then he still goes in for a second bite.
Oh, yeah. They had lots of trouble working with the kids because they're kids. They had to direct. And there's one scene where they wanted the kids to look really surprised. And so, without telling them, the whole crew dressed up with fruit and vegetables all over their heads and faces and started doing silly faces and stuff. It just looks ridiculous just to make these kids, like, genuinely surprised.
I was wondering about that because the toddlers that are crying, those toddlers can't act.
Sure.
But they're crying for real. So I wonder what they did. Like, maybe it was enough to see the scary Santa Claus because he is scary. But I wonder what they did afterwards, how they had to, like, console the little children.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's not
Scarred.
real. Are they all scared of Santa Claus after that? Is that like a traumatizing experience for all of them?
I hope not. I do know what they did on set in order to make them cry.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
They're all humming.
Ah.
So they're all wandering around the room, not making eye contact with the children, making a loud baritone humming noise, and that freaked them out.
Oh, wow.
It would me too,
Oh, my
actually.
God.
Oh, wow. How did they figure that out? Like, after many, many tests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of failed experiments.
What else did they do?
Yeah.
I know. So one thing I was going to ask you about was the central character of Miette. She's interesting to me because I was thinking about how rarely it is that you see a female character taking the lead in a fantasy. And usually when you do, the tradition is in Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz, and even films we've seen more recently down like Mirror Mask, they tend to have pre-adolescent girls. They're always on the cusp, that sort of bridge between adulthood and childhood. And that supposedly gives them sort of easier entry into a fantasy realm. And similarly, Lucy Pevensey is the one that gets them into Narnia and The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. But when they get there, Peter Pevensey has the traditional male hero's journey, whereas female characters tend to have more of an internalized adventure through their own mind. Alice in Wonderland's always been posited as a dream. In the film version of Wizard of Oz, that's posited pretty much as a dream with figures from her real life reinterpreted into it. Mirror Mask is the same. It's all through her own imagination. What I find interesting about Miette is that in the finale, she goes into the male villain's dream, and while he diminishes into a screaming man baby, she matures into this maternal, disapproving figure that doesn't seem alien. It seems like it's still her. It's very much her, just sort of the natural, logical progression of her. I just thought that was fascinating, and being aware of your gender studies background, I was wondering if you'd had any thoughts on this while you were watching the movie.
No, I did actually think first when I saw Miette that it was a boy, which is very telling. Like, I thought she was the boy leader of the gang.
Right.
So it made me quite happy when I realized and remembered that, oh, no, she's a girl. And she's wearing a red dress all through the movie, but it's not like a dress that's supposed to make her prettier. It's just a kid's dress, a striped shirt underneath. And she's very logical and reasoning, and she goes after what she needs to survive. It is quite lovely. The characters aren't really their genders in this movie. It's like, except for the lady at the brothel, I guess, who's very much a woman. But even the octopus sisters, they're just mean people. And it's quite nice to see that. It's not at all about their gender.
No, that's true.
I did kind of laugh a little bit at that dream sequence when Crank is getting younger and Miette is getting older, because it's a classic example of morphing, which was a very prevalent effect in the 90s, and they used it in everything. But they do it so well.
At that point, I was like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Because I thought part of it was real. But then I'm like, oh no, it's just a dream. And in dreams, weird things happen.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's actually growing older. But yeah, it was hard to separate the reality from the dreams all through the movie. So at that point, I was like, I don't know what's real now. I don't know. I don't know anything.
I mean, for me, going through my teenage and early 20s, that was the tagline that got me for all movies. Lines are blurred between reality and dream. What's real? What's not real? I loved movies like that.
Yeah.
So this movie was right up my alley. Watching it again, it did remind me a lot of movies like Brazil and Dark City, that sort of really dark underbelly of this world. And yeah, I love it. I love the darkness.
Yeah, I do too. You just have to accept it. It's just like you can't be too logical with it. You have to just surrender to the weirdness.
Yes.
If you're
Yes.
going to like it. If you're expecting a very coherent story, then you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah.
Because it's not at all coherent. It's just very weird.
Yeah.
And then there are scenes like the scene where they're trying to get the key from inside the apartment. And they put in some grated cheese underneath the door. And then they release a rat with a magnet on his tail. And he goes inside, the key gets caught on the magnet, and then they release a cat in there so the rat can come outside again with the key so they have it. Like, that's such a lovely thing. I love things like that. And also the domino effect at the end where it's like they're almost dying.
Yeah.
It's not logical at all.
No.
And it's really like, I've thought about it because usually movies where coincidences save them, it feels like a cheat. But these are just weird coincidences upon weird coincidences in such a fun way that you accept it. It's like, it's the loophole,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
It's so clever.
I think it's because the world is so strange that anything can happen, really.
Yeah.
So if a single tear from Miet causes a whole ship to
Yeah.
smash into the docks, so be it. I will accept
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. Because you see how everything happens and you're like, yeah, sure, that would happen. Even if it is wildly insane.
Yes.
It's like a Rube Goldberg machine sometimes, the movie. It's just, it's one of these machines where it's just so ridiculously complicated to achieve a simple thing, but it's such a delight to watch.
Yes.
That you don't care. I think it's because it's pushed so far you don't care. Some of them are quite simple, like the moment where the Ron Perlman character, demonstrates that he's strong enough to lift up the safe, and it's just because he casually picks it up and slams it on a trap door to stop a dog from attacking him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just after they've asked who's strong enough to lift the safe, and he just does it by accident.
Yeah.
There are little moments like that that are just coincidental, that are cheeky and funny, but then the climax, that particular sequence, is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I think like what you said before, Daniel, about like not understanding it the first time you watched it, I still don't really understand it. But I feel like what I take away from it is more like little vignettes and little fun things and the mood that it leaves behind. The sense of a weird, scary dread and the fun of it as well. Like the mixture of all of that is what I love so much about it. But I'm not sure that it has like a deeper hidden meaning.
Yeah.
If it has, I haven't understood it. It's just very weird and delightful. And I accept it as that.
Yeah, I do have a quote, and I think it's from Jean-Pierre Jeunet, but it's in the making of, and he says, "It's a film about dreams, and maybe we need to identify the dreams that we can realize. In other words, our imagination. We're very into cinema of the imagination, which is all about that. And if we don't dream, we die, we grow old before our time. That's what the film is about, in a way."
Ah, so when she grows old in his dream, it was before her time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she had given up her life because she's trading places with little brother.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
That did fly over my head, though.
it flew over my head too.
Now it's time for random trivia.
So, Dan, what fascinating piece of trivia have you managed to lure under the bottom of the door with the help of a mouse this time?
I hope this is real, but some trivia about this movie that I read was that in order to get the color palette for the film, that's a really strange green, kind of dark color palette, they painted the faces of all the actors with kind of more white makeup. And so when they color corrected the entire film so that the actors would have like actual skin tone. It made everything else look really strange. And that's how they achieved that, apparently.
Wow.
Wow.
That's so clever.
I know.
That's like
Yeah.
taking it an extra step for sure.
Yeah.
They've already planned out how it would look before they shot it. Like there was no room to change their mind at that point because they had already
Yeah.
decided.
Exactly.
Yeah. It just shows how meticulously this thing was planned in terms
Yeah.
of its visual style.
Yes. That was our random trivia. So this movie, all the visuals were adapted from the mind of Marc Caro, is that right? One of the co-directors of this film, who hasn't really done a lot since. I don't know why.
No, I was surprised to see his name as a director because I didn't know that. I thought it was only Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, I would love to see more of his stuff.
Yeah. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, after this film, I think, was plucked out of France and given the job of directing Alien 4, which
Yeah.
seemed like a bit of a thankless task after Alien 3.
And it's very strange because it feels like if you get Jean-Pierre, you know what you get. And it doesn't feel like that fits with the whole alien thing, right? It just feels like a studio had tried to scale it down and he was not getting to do what he wanted. And of course, because it's an alien movie, it doesn't really feel like that's the angle you should go with. It just feels like a very strange decision to choose him as a director for it because it was bound to be a disappointment for fans, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could have seen the movie that he wanted to make. If
Yeah.
it was as sort of intricate and well put together as City of Lost Children, it would have been, wow, very fascinating film. I am probably alone in the entire world, but I didn't find Alien Resurrection that bad. I thought it was okay in terms of the whole Alien franchise, and I enjoyed it better than Alien 3. So,
I mean, if you love his style, of course.
yeah. So we've talked a lot about the visual style of this film. I loved the audio of this movie as well. I mean, specifically, the music is
Yeah.
breathtaking. It's the composer of Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Angelo Badalamenti.
I love what they did with the music when the flea is supposed to be activated because that works so
yeah.
well. It's such a childish, lovely melody.
Yeah.
And then when you hear it the third time, you know exactly what it means. And that's when one is trying to kill Miet.
Yeah.
It adds so much to it.
Yes, it makes it much, much more disturbing and sort of menacing.
Yeah.
I love it when films add a sort of audio aspect as a plot point, I guess. But yeah, that piece of music with that cranking, I don't even know what that instrument is. Is that like a hurdy-gurdy? Or what is that?
I don't know what it's called. I know what it's called in Swedish, but
Oh, do you? Well, what's it called in Swedish?
well, I would guess it's a speldosa.
Oh,
I don't know.
That sounds great.
It's something that they use at circus. Usually,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Well, that melody is haunting, will haunt my dreams.
Yeah, I can hear it in my head right now.
And Miet and One have a beautiful theme as well, a friendship theme. And it's quite powerful every time it comes up. It's really beautiful. And it's so unusual to hear Angelo Badalamenti doing something like this because you're so used to him doing intentionally cheesy soap opera music for Twin Peaks.
Right,
In a
yes.
very different style of stripped back acoustics and largely synth.
Yeah.
And to hear him unleashed on this sort of orchestral scale is quite wonderful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's just one of the things that makes the film endlessly fascinating to revisit, despite the strangeness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I feel like the characters alone make it interesting and worth revisiting. And yeah, it is just kind of a series of really quirky events strung together until it finishes.
Yeah,
But we love every moment of it, even though it doesn't really make any sense.
exactly.
But the ending is so abrupt as well.
Yeah.
It put me in mind of when Jacob Gentry was talking to us about the difference between modern movies and older movies, that as soon as the story runs out in older movies, you know, that's it, game over.
Yeah.
There's not the grace note that you tend to have in movies now.
Now it ends with a burp,
It does, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Coming to you live from the Movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
can't wait to wake up from your Christmas nightmare? Join us for the Moobly Awards, where we nominate our favourite quirky clone parts of the film in a number of age-reversing fever dream categories.
Best quote!
Lotta, do you have a favourite quote from the movie?
Radiateur. I think that's all I need.
Yeah, it is a beautiful moment, that scene.
Yes.
For sure.
How about you, Conrad?
Mine is actually one which I think is in there as a little wink to the audience, and it's the moment when Dominique Pignon is trying to sort of carry out a secret plan because Uncle Irvin has told him that he's the original, and he says, "Oh, it's hard being original."
Oh yeah, I love that too.
I think that's a comment on the film itself, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sure. I love the clones so much. They're just so comedic and captivating to watch, their sort of antics. And yeah, my favorite quote is from them as well. It's a very simple quote. It's when the short woman is asking them, "Are you not men?" And they all in tandem shake their heads and go, "No, we're not."
Yeah, that's great too.
Best hair or costume?
There's a lot to choose from here. The costumes, of course, designed by Jean-Paul Gaultier, so it's not any old rubbish.
Oh. That's where the stripes come in.
Oh, yeah.
The striped shirt. Yes. Now I see. Yeah, I thought about it. There's a scene where I think his little brother, when they run away from the place in the end, I think. And I realized that what he's wearing right now is actually what any old hipster would wear today.
Yeah.
It's so cute and stylish. It doesn't really seem like it's what an orphan would wear, but I mean, I would wear what he wore.
Designer.
Yeah. And hairstyle,
Yeah.
I would for sure say the short lady. Her hair is fantastic.
Yeah, that's my pick as well. Mademoiselle Bismuth, I think she is, played by Muriel Mosset, who's only 3 feet and 11 inches tall. Just naturally, she has quite a pointed chin.
Yeah.
And so they style her hair in this sort of massive cone shape upwards. And it just makes her whole face like this enormous almond. It's
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's an amazing piece of character design. I love it.
Most 90s moment.
The steampunk, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Because I don't think steampunk is so history now. Like, you can't do anything steampunk without seeming
Retro. Yeah.
kind
Nostalgic.
of lame.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really must have been so on time, right before it unleashed and became big there. So it feels very end of 90s.
Sure. Yeah.
And they used it very well.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, they did for sure. I mean, it's certainly I see echoes of it in Dark City, which was 98, and Wild Wild West, which was more early 2000s, I think. But yeah, it's not something that you see very much now at all.
Yeah, no, you don't. Because I would say the most 90s part of this film was kind of, I guess it was almost 80s/90s, but that sort of gothic darkness of the film that it really reminded me of sort of early Tim Burton, like Edward Scissorhands, and even like the first Batman movie. They had that sort of, I mean, it's all practical sets as well, so everything felt very tangible and very kind of dark and mysterious, and that sort of gothic vibe.
Yeah, if they would remake it today, they would probably make a lot of the environment CGI, and that would be sad because a lot of the joy in this is that it feels so homemade in many ways.
Favorite scene?
Maybe the radiateur scene, just to be on trend. But I also really like the domino effect solution at the end.
Yeah, that was amazing. It just escalated
Yeah.
so quickly.
Yeah. My favourite is the scene where One and Miette are sat under the stars and they connect and he adopts her as his little sister.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And then the radiateur is, it's a nice little button on the end of the scene that makes
touching.
it just so sweet. Yeah.
Yes. Well, my favourite scene, Lotta, you've already mentioned it. It's the mouse scene with stealing the safe. It is so cute and quirky and just, I guess, so French as well. I mean, how does someone even think about that? That's amazing. When they put the cat through, I just lost it.
Yeah.
It's
was so
just
funny.
brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, the ingenuity in a lot of the scenes is what I take with me, I think.
Making something that would normally be quite boring to watch. So interesting.
Yeah.
Most cliched fantasy moment.
The only thing I could think of was the pre-adolescent female fantasy character,
Yeah.
the Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy Gale kind of connection, but that was the only thing I could really strike upon.
Yeah. The only thing I picked out, and I'm not even sure whether it's a cliche, but the use of circus performers often crops up in a lot of fantasy, like kind of acrobats or little people.
Yeah.
But in this, the conjoined twins and the flea circus guy and, Ron Perlman as like the strongman. So, yeah, that's the only thing that was kind of, I guess, a fantasy aspect.
Favorite special effect?
The big boom at the end, maybe.
Oh, right.
But I also did really like when they're in the boat, Miet and One is sitting on the boat and going, I think they're going to the oil rig. And it's just a beautiful shot. It's like a lot of fog and it's like a painting. And she sits in the steer and he's rowing and it's really, really beautiful. The ocean looks so huge.
Yes.
It's beautifully done. It's beautifully done. There was one logic fallacy that I noticed, though, that they go to such great lengths to try and get a map for the mines, and yet you'd think you'd hardly miss them. They're
I
enormous
thought that too.
and on the surface. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's even like putting the oar to it and like pushing away. And I'm like, what? What?
yeah, it doesn't seem safe, does it, really? But there we go. Mine is probably the morphing. And I know morphing is a bit of a cliche in mid to late 90s, but it's so well done.
Oh, it's incredible, yes.
I mean, it helps that Crank is bald already, so him going down to a baby is pretty pretty easy. But Miette going through various different stages of maturity to an old lady it's so convincing. It's seamless.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because the camera is moving the entire time as well.
Yeah. The cloning is also really great. I don't understand
Yeah.
how they do that with all the clones.
Yeah.
Where it feels so convincing.
It looks so seamless to me with the cloning. Like, I didn't even see any outlines or anything with the blue screen effects. I don't know. We take it so for granted now, like cloning actors and having double ups of characters in movies. But, like, I remember even watching Parent Trap and being, wow, how did they do that?
Yeah. There's so many here. Like sometimes they're all 5 of them or however many they are doing things together and it's so seamless.
Yes, there's one shot where one slaps another clone and then he turns around and slaps another clone. I just thought, what? How are they doing this?
Best sound effect.
Well, the tune that they play to get the flea to activate, I really like that. That was so well crafted and
So memorable, yes.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I actually quite like the sound of the flea.
Yes, that was my pick too.
So when it was jumping, it had this really sort of unique like flick sound
Yeah.
that it made.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, when it returned to Marcel as well, it was like, to get his attention, it was chirping. I didn't know fleas could chirp, but
Yeah.
And it's really loud.
yes.
Considering what an important force it is in the story, I think it's really given a lot of presence in the soundtrack, which I love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most funniest scene?
Irvin the migraine brain, the whole thing with him and when he's getting the aspirin. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's something that we've talked about before already, which is the ridiculous chain of events that leads to the interruption to one strangling Miette.
Yes.
I did note it down because it really is truly ridiculous. It's a teardrop from Miette lands on a spider's web, wakes up a bird that chirps and wakes up a dog, startles a homeless person who throws a bottle that dislodges a seagull that poos on the windshield of a car, that crashes into a fire hydrant, that washes rats into a strip club, that drives the topless dancers out onto the street, which startles an electrician who shorts out the pole that he's working on and kills the electricity in the entire city, knocking out the lighthouse, which means the ship loses its way and crashes into the dock.
Of course.
And that, yeah,
Well, what do you mean?
it's what
Totally plausible.
Yeah.
completely. Yeah, it's fine. It's a masterclass of that particular style of theirs, and it's just wonderful to watch.
Yes.
I was just giggling throughout the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite funny moment is when he opens the briefcase, because seeing what looks like 100 grown men in raincoats with funny eye gadgets jump at this tiny sound is so hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also perfectly timed. It's wonderful.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's the Movie Awards.
Hurrah.
Nice.
It's that time. It's the crucial moment for the final verdict. Should the City of Lost Children be rescued from the clutches of clones, a 3-foot woman, and a dreamless old man to be revered by all? Or should it be strapped to an oil rig with 10 tons of dynamite, blown up and left to sink to the depths of the oubliette, forgotten even by the French? Lotta, you are our guest today. You chose this film. What are your final thoughts?
I love it. Keep it. Watch it. Yes. I think it's so weird that I just accept all the weirdness. And I'm glad that it exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like you just don't see movies like this anymore with so much detail, with all the weirdness and quirkiness as well. And the fact that it is dark and funny at the same time. It's a good balance of all the things, even though it is largely an incoherent plot. And even watching it again as a grown adult, I still found it confusing. I had to rewind some scenes. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's visually, it's stunning. It's entirely homespun, as you say. A lot of it's practical or using very classical effects to achieve the visual style. It's tongue in cheek. It has some moments that are really dark and disturbing and emotionally disturbing as well, but it also has a lot of heart and it's having fun with its audience at the same time. I can understand why it's in the oubliette. I'd completely forgotten about it.
Me too.
When I think of Jeunet, I think of Amélie, and I think of the fact that he did Alien 4, and I completely forget this movie. So I think it's ripe for rediscovery because, as you say, Lotta, it's weirdness that you can embrace. It's something that you can just enjoy for what it is and accept it for what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think people should dust this one off and give it another go.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's set it free.
Set it free.
Yeah.
Well, Lotta, it's been amazing having you on the podcast with us today, talking about this movie. And I'm sure all of our listeners have loved hearing your thoughts. Where can they keep up with your adventures in cinema and your other creative works that you're working on right now?
Well, I think Instagram is my best place. That's where I'm most active. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to plug right now.
Okay.
Dave and I have started a production company together. We have some things that are happening once this Corona thing is ending that we're working on, but nothing that you're able to watch right now. But yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, I will tell you.
What's your handle?
It's just my name, so Lotta Losten in one word.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah.
And also, everyone has to check out all of your short films on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's on the Pony Smasher YouTube channel.
How did you come up with that name, by the way?
The most frequently asked question, I think. Well, David started his YouTube channel when YouTube was just new, and he didn't think it would take off.
Oh, right.
He didn't really know what would happen with it, so he just like, oh, what should I name myself? Take a random word and put it with another random word. And that's how he came up with Pony Smasher. So
Okay.
it's nothing at all. But then he got some viral hits in Scandinavia before we went viral with Lights Out. So already by then, it was kind of a name. So now he is Pony Smasher. And I follow along on his channel with our shorts. So yeah, Pony Smasher.
Are there any more shorts in the offing, maybe, during lockdown?
Yeah, hopefully. We're taking a little break after our last one, but we have a few ideas. So, and it all depends on when things are starting up again, if we have time.
Yeah.
But hopefully, yes.
I hope at some stage, I don't know when, you revisit that one you were going to film in the snow, because that
Yeah.
looked amazing.
Yeah, it was so cold though, so I'm not even sure we want to do it. Yeah, our hands were like stiff as rocks afterwards, and it took like a day or two to even like get normal body temperature back. So I'm not so sure, but yeah, it was beautiful though. But it's tricky as well because you can't rely on weather. Because who knows if the snow will look as beautiful one day as it will the next. That was the problem we had.
Yeah.
The sun came out and just ruined everything for us.
That's why you need to build a life-size indoor set of
Yeah.
snow so you
Yeah.
can control everything.
And what about Shazam 2? Is there a likelihood that your character will make a reappearance in that, even though she disintegrated so wonderfully?
No, I don't think it's going to be the same character. Maybe I will be able to join in another character. That's what David keeps saying, at least. So, and I've told them that they can hide me behind a lot of makeup and masks and things if they want to. But I don't know
Okay.
yet. We'll see.
There's lots of exciting stuff to look forward to.
But Conrad, what do we have to look forward to for our next film?
Well, we have to look forward to the return of Serge Bodnarchuk of Cold Crash Pictures as our special guest.
Hooray.
Which is very exciting. First 3-time return guest,
Yes.
which is really great. And he chose for us the 1983 science fantasy swashbuckling film Krull.
I do remember watching that a while ago, but I don't remember anything apart from that ridiculous weapon.
Yes, which has a cameo in Ready Player One, doesn't it?
Yes, I saw that recently.
Yeah. So cool. Yes, it's directed by Peter Yates, written by Stanford Sherman, and stars Ken Marshall, Lizette Anthony, Freddie Jones, Francesca Annis, and a very, very young Liam Neeson.
Wow.
It's before he had a very special set of skills, that's for sure.
Okay.
So that should be exciting. I'm looking forward to that, actually.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And if you listeners want to look forward to when it gets released, you can follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as Movie Oubliette.
You can also email us at movie.oubliette@gmail.com if you want to share your thoughts on the film or the film we did today with Lotta.
Yes, and if you haven't already, please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or whatever other platform you are consuming us on.
And if you really love the show and want to show us even more love, you can head on over to Patreon and support us there. For as little as $1, you can nominate and vote on films that we should do in future episodes. And for $5, you get access to lots of bonus material, including, for example, an extended version of our interview with Robert Picardo from the last episode.
As well as that, an extended Moobly Awards with our current guest, Lotta.
Yes, who has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Lotta.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Thanks, listeners, for embarking on this very French journey. Until next time,
Bye for now.
Bye.
au revoir.
We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette.
Ton petit frère, Miette. petite sœur.